Chapter 64 to 66, Get Lost, END. New World. It has been a few weeks since he left. While Pride had initially been eager to explore the other islands, he realized that it was time to focus on hunting down Draco. He made a mental note to return to his exploration plans once he had accomplished his mission. In just over a week, Pride had arrived at Xebec Archipelago, an incredibly fast arrival time that was owed to his devil fruit power and his ability to go without sleep. As soon as he arrived there, Pride began his search for someone who could coat his boat, allowing him to safely cross over to Fishman Island and continue on his journey through the New World. Due to the size of his boat, it didn't take long to get it coated, and before he knew it, Pride was already on his way to the New World, cruising underwater with ease. Although he had reached Fishman Island, he wasn't particularly interested in exploring it at the moment, as there was nothing of particular interest to him there yet. One reason for this was that the reincarnation of Poseidon had not yet been born. Consequently, Pride made only a brief stop at Fishman Island before continuing on his way. After a few days, he surfaced in the New World. Pride had initially planned to explore the first islands that he encountered, including Punk Hazard and the other two islands that appeared first. However, during his brief stopover at Fishman Island, he received some intriguing news. A battle was brewing between the Phoenix Pirates and the Roger Pirates. Without hesitation, Pride set off toward the location of the impending battle. After not seeing the crew for many years, Pride felt a strong sense of longing for his old friends. Regrettably, he did not have a Den Mushy at that time, so he was unable to exchange contact information with them. With his New World log pose in hand, Pride embarked on his journey toward the specified location. Broccoli Island, New World. The island is a picturesque and distinctive destination, with its rolling green hills and vibrant plant life made up predominantly of broccoli. The island is home to a winding river, which is fed by a magnificent waterfall, adding to the island's natural beauty. Known for its broccoli plantations and rumored healing powers, Broccoli Island is a colorful and unique addition to the diverse landscape of the New World. 30 minutes before Pride's arrival, near the island, two ships were visible on the horizon. They seemed to be in close proximity to each other, and their flags indicated that they were both pirate crews. The tension in the air was suddenly broken by a powerful voice, ringing out across the sea. "Roger, I have tolerated your presence long enough, but your constant trespassing on my territory is starting to piss me off." As he spoke, he released a massive burst of Conqueror's Haki, causing the air to vibrate and sending shockwaves through the water. Boom! Suddenly, a brilliant baby blue sphere erupted from his body, expanding rapidly and enveloping hundreds of meters. The crew members on both ships felt the energy emanating from the sphere and struggled to maintain their balance, with some of the weaker ones having to brace themselves against the ship's railings to avoid losing consciousness. The waves beneath them grew restless, churning and roiling as if in response to the strange occurrence. Roger let out a triumphant laugh, relishing in his opponent's frustration. "Wahaiche, you'll have to stop me for that red jam," he taunted, a sly grin spreading across his face. Suddenly, his eyes flickered crimson for a brief moment, and a powerful aura of deep red light erupted from his body. The ocean was a battlefield as two colossal bubbles clashed with each other, vying for dominance. The first bubble was a deep blue color, shimmering in the sunlight as it surged forward. The second bubble was a crimson-red hue, pulsing with an inner energy that matched its opponent's intensity. They fought with reckless abandon, moving swiftly from left to right, then right to left, each one trying to gain the upper hand. As they collided, a tremendous force was unleashed, sending shockwaves rippling through the water. Smaller fish far away darted out of the way, trying to avoid being caught in the crossfire. The sound of the impact was deafening, echoing across the ocean floor and reverberating through the surrounding coral reefs. The two bubbles continued to battle fiercely, but as the struggle reached its climax, they suddenly dissolved into nothingness. For a moment, the water was calm, but then a massive shockwave spread out from the point where the bubbles had been fighting. The shockwave was so powerful that it pushed aside everything in its path, including the water itself, creating a temporary void in the ocean. As the shockwave subsided, a dark blast followed, emanating from the same point. The blast was like a black hole, absorbing everything around it, including light, sound, and even the air itself. Most people nearby held their ears in pain, trying to block out the deafening silence that followed the blast. As the darkness receded, a strange sense of unease settled over the area. The once vibrant ocean was now eerily silent and devoid of life, as if the blast had sucked all the energy out of it. Roger and Red Jam stood facing each other, their eyes locked in a fierce stare. Roger looked remarkably similar to how he did 5 years ago, with the same sharp features, piercing gaze, and muscular build. The only difference was that time had etched itself onto his face, adding a few more lines and wrinkles around his eyes and mouth. Red Jam was a well-known pirate of the New World, and was widely regarded as one of the strongest pirates. His crew, the Phoenix Pirates, was one of the most famous pirate crews in the New World, along with other notable crews, such as the Sphinx Pirates, the Akuma Pirates, and the Roger Pirates. Red Jam, the captain of the Phoenix Pirates, was known for his striking appearance. Despite his name, he did not have red hair, but instead had long, flowing blonde locks that added to his imposing presence. His piercing blue eyes and well-groomed beard were also notable features. In terms of clothing, he wore black pants and shoes, along with a white t-shirt and a black coat, which gave him a commanding and intimidating look. Standing at just over 3 meters, he was taller than Roger and was respected by his crew and rivals alike. Roger, Red Jam's commanding voice echoed across the deck of his ship. I know you swept in like a storm, but I don't want to see you in my territory. Take your business to Akuma's turf. Listen, Roger's voice was calm but firm as he spoke. I came here to explore, not to conquer your territory. He stared intently into Red Jam's piercing blue eyes and grinned. But if you have a problem with that, then you'll have to stop me, whether you like it or not. Very well, Red Jam's voice was resolute. It seems like talking won't get us anywhere. Many of the larger pirate crews failed to understand the true nature of the Roger Pirates, assuming they were just like themselves, eager to conquer new territories and become the most powerful force on the seas. However, the Roger Pirates were different. Their motivations and goals were shrouded in mystery, leaving many to wonder what truly drove them forward on their journeys. Boom! In a stunning display of power, 2 baby blue phoenix wings emerged from Red Jam's back, causing those around him to gasp in awe. The wings seemed to pulse with fiery energy. He was the previous owner of the Tori Tori no Mi model, Phoenix Devil Fruit, a mythical fruit that granted its wielder incredible powers, including the ability to transform into a phoenix and come back to life after being fatally wounded. The fruit would later come into the possession of Marco, the first commander of the Whitebeard pirates. Red Jam launched himself towards Roger with explosive speed, closing the distance between them in the blink of an eye. His movements were a blur. With his keen anticipation, Roger leaped into the air and met Red Jam head-on as he launched his attack. The latter unleashed a series of powerful attacks, throwing punches with both his left and right fists. Each blow was infused with the highest stage of armament hockey. Using a technique similar to Jeppo's, Roger deftly floated through the air, easily evading Red Jam's barrage of punches. With a seemingly unnatural ability to anticipate the precise timing and trajectory of each blow, it was as if he possessed the power of clairvoyance. Roger's laughter rang out boisterously, his voice echoing through the air with unrestrained mirth. Waha-che, he chortled, clearly enjoying the thrill of the battle before him. Undeterred by Roger's agile evasions, Red Jam persisted with his relentless assault, driving the fight forward with fierce determination. Roger, seemingly undaunted, deftly maneuvered towards the nearby island, perhaps eager to continue the exhilarating battle on new terrain. Red Jam refused to cease his relentless barrage. While he realized that Roger was leading him toward the island, Red Jam remained undeterred, for he knew that the solid ground would provide him with a more advantageous battlefield than the treacherous sea. From the deck of the Oro Jackson, Rayleigh had an unobstructed view of the first commander of the Phoenix Pirates. The first commander of the Phoenix Pirates caught Rayleigh's attention with his distinctive appearance. He had neatly trimmed black hair, piercing brown eyes, and a thick beard that framed his face. At a towering height of 3 meters, he stood as tall as his captain and was clad entirely in a blue outfit. Rayleigh had heard rumors that the first commander was not a devil fruit user, but a formidable spear wielder, making him a powerful and versatile fighter on the battlefield. As he and Orichalcum locked eyes, Rayleigh sensed a mutual understanding between them. Without saying a word, Orichalcum's gaze conveyed a message of respect and restraint, as if to say, "Let's leave the outcome of this encounter to our captains. If you don't make a move, neither will I." Nevertheless, Rayleigh remained unfazed by the situation, confident that he would emerge victorious regardless of the circumstances. In fact, he was right. In many large pirate crews, there tends to be a notable power difference between the captain and the first mate. However, the dynamic within Roger's pirate crew was unique, and it was unusual for crews to have such a small power gap between the captain and the vice-captain. After breaking eye contact, both individuals redirected their attention back to the fight. The battle between Roger and Red Jam is currently unfolding on Brock Kolai Island. As Roger and Red Jam locked eyes, a powerful and captivating energy seemed to surge between them. Their eyes, fixated on each other, were ablaze with a deep red hue that pulsed with intensity. It was as if their very souls connected at that moment, their shared gaze speaking volumes beyond mere words. The air between them crackled with tension and anticipation. With a grin on their faces, Roger and Red Jam activated their Conqueror's Haki, causing overwhelming pressure to radiate from their bodies. The atmosphere around them seemed to shift, as if the very air was trembling in response to their power. The clash between the red and baby blue auras was a sight to behold. As they fought, their power caused destruction in their wake, leaving a trail of devastation wherever they went. Their Haki surged, creating a maelstrom of energy that engulfed everything in its path. The once beautiful sunshine disappeared, replaced by dark, ominous clouds that seemed to slowly gather in the sky. The sudden change in weather was a testament to the raw power of their battle. Red and baby blue lightning bolts struck relentlessly, illuminating the dark sky and casting a surreal glow on the landscape. The only source of light was the split sky, which divided into two sides, and through which some light shone through the darkness. Despite the light, it was still a gloomy sight, as the intensity of their battle seemed to darken everything around them. Piece by piece, Roger dominated and pushed back Redjam's shockwave, overpowering him. "TZZ," muttered Redjam as he exploded towards Roger with insane speed, his determination to win the battle evident on his face. Roger, undeterred, drew his sword with practiced ease. It was one of the 12 most powerful swords in the world, known as ACE. The sword glinted in the light of the lightning bolts that continued to strike around them. Roger held it with a steady hand, his eyes locked on Redjam as he approached. Final departure. Boom. Roger made several swift arm movements, his sword moving with deadly precision as he unleashed a flurry of 4 to 5 strikes at his opponent. Each strike was 10 meters long and enveloped with both emission and internal destruction, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. With swift left and right movements, Redjam deflected each of Roger's strikes. But then something changed. His right arm began to glow with a bright baby blue light, and an enormous amount of energy enveloped his entire limb. As the energy surged through him, Redjam unleashed a devastating attack, his arm now engulfed in a blazing blue fire that consumed everything in its path. Eternal breath. Boom. He unleashed a massive fireball, the diameter of which was truly enormous. The ball of flames shot directly toward Roger, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake, as everything in its way was engulfed by the intense heat and fire. The fireball glowed with a bright baby blue light, illuminating everything in its path in stark contrast to the darkness that surrounded them. It was clear that Redjam had put some of his power into this attack, and it was a sight to behold as the massive ball of flames hurtled toward Roger. As Redjam's massive fireball hurtled towards him, Roger grinned in anticipation. With a swift motion, he fired off another final departure attack, but this time, he infused even more of his hockey into it, causing the attack to quickly change its diameter. Its length now reached an incredible 25 meters, and the hockey that had been infused into it blazed with an intensity that seemed to affect even space and time. The two attacks were now hurtling toward each other at breakneck speed, their immense power causing the air to tremble and the ground to shake. It was a truly awe-inspiring sight, and those who witnessed the battle could feel the raw power emanating from the two warriors. As the attacks drew closer and closer, it seemed as though the very fabric of reality was warping and bending around them. Boom! As the final departure attack collided with Redjam's massive fireball, there was a brief standstill, the two immense forces pushing against each other with unbelievable pressure. But then, suddenly, a shimmering light illuminated the area around them, and it was as if an atomic bomb had gone off. An enormous shockwave spread out in all directions, obliterating everything in its vicinity. Trees that had been standing just moments before were ripped out of their roots and shot up into the atmosphere, the ground beneath them completely disintegrating. The shockwave continued to spread outwards, tearing apart everything in its path. Buildings crumbled to the ground, and the landscape was forever changed as the once beautiful terrain was transformed into a desolate wasteland. The sheer power of the explosion was unfathomable, and it seemed as though nothing could survive such a devastating blast. The effects of the two attacks were devastating to the island. As the shockwave from the explosion spread outward, it tore through the landscape with unimaginable force. As the dust and debris settled, it became clear just how much damage had been done. A third of the island had been completely destroyed, reduced to a barren wasteland of rubble and ash. The rest of the island was also badly damaged, with buildings and infrastructure torn apart and the landscape forever altered. Roger and Redjam continued their fierce battle with even more explosive force. The sound of their attacks echoed across the island. Boom, boom. As Roger and Redjam clashed with lightning speed, the sound of their attacks produced a sonic boom that could be heard for miles around. The Phoenix pirates, who had been watching the battle from their ships, were stunned by the sheer power on display. Despite the Roger pirates being well known, the Phoenix pirates had never witnessed anything like this before. They had heard stories of Roger's strength and the might of his crew, but seeing it in person was a completely different experience. Someone from the Phoenix pirates exclaimed in amazement, "Insane! He can keep up with the captain." But Orichalcum was less worried. He knew that Redjam had not revealed his full strength yet, and was confident that his captain would emerge victorious. Orichalcum watched the battle with a sense of calm, knowing that his captain had everything under control. As he glanced in their direction, his gaze met with Silver's Rayleigh's, locking eyes momentarily. Why is he so calm? He wondered before turning his attention back to the fight. Rayleigh was unfazed. Although their bounty was not as high as that of the so-called conquerors, Rayleigh knew that they were just as powerful, if not more so. After all, the true extent of their power had yet to be revealed to the world. Roger and Red Jam continued to trade blows, their fight intensifying with each passing moment. Boom! Standing only a few feet away, Roger sidestepped another blow from Red Jam, as if he knew where it would land. With lightning reflexes, he quickly retaliated, slashing at the Phoenix captain's chest with his sword. He slid back an incredible 40 meters before finally coming to a stop. Though he had the means to defend himself with his arms, he chose not to do so. Red Jam's incredible power and resilience were a testament to the immense abilities of his Devil Fruit. As a Zoan-type Devil Fruit user, he had gained a tremendous boost in all physical aspects, and being a mythical Zoan type, the Tori Tori Nomi had granted him an even greater boost. With the added ability of Blue Flames, Red Jam had gained regenerative abilities, making him even more resistant to damage. It was no wonder he had been able to withstand Roger's attack with such ease. When Roger's attack hit Red Jam's exposed area, a wound appeared that extended across his entire torso. However, to the surprise of everyone watching, the area began to fill with blue flames that quickly enveloped the wound. In a matter of seconds, the wound had completely disappeared, leaving no trace behind. "Wahareche, you have a very interesting ability there," said Roger, grinning in appreciation of Red Jam's impressive powers. "Ragaka, you flatter me. But yes, my abilities are indeed very interesting and powerful," Red Jam replied, before meeting Roger's gaze. "But enough talk. Let's focus on the fight." Boom! The ground beneath Red Jam's feet began to dissolve as he charged toward Roger with incredible speed. With each step he took, the ground beneath him continuously gave way, unable to withstand the immense pressure. He continued to attack with blow after blow, but Roger skillfully evaded each one with ease. "Ragaka, you have refined your observations hockey quite well. I must give you that. Not many are capable of seeing into the future," he commented, impressed by Roger's hockey. The next moment, his expression changed and he looked like a psychopath. "But do you really think that makes you invincible?" he asked in a menacing tone. Boom! Without warning, Roger abruptly leaped back and moved away by 55 meters, disappearing from Red Jam's sight with blinding speed. In the next moment, a massive firestorm erupted and spread outwards, completely engulfing everything within a 50-meter radius. The area was now engulfed in blue flames, but there was a noticeable difference between Red Jam's flames and those of Marco's. While Marco's flames did not emit any heat and were devoid of any proportion of such, Red Jam's flames were scorching hot, even hotter than Ace's flames. It was a testament to how much he had developed his Devil Fruit abilities and how powerful he had become. "Wahahareche, these flames are pretty hot," laughed Roger as he boldly approached the raging blue flames and briefly touched them with his finger, seemingly unfazed by their intense heat. Red Jam sighed. It's quite annoying to have an opponent who can see the future. As they locked eyes, a sense of clarity permeated the air despite the physical distance separating them. With a grin, Red Jam spoke up. "I think it's time for us to get serious and end this." Boom! Once again, he launched an attack on Roger, moving with incredible speed that bordered on the insane. However, this time there was something different. As he closed in on his target, his fist was engulfed not only in the usual blue flames, but also in dark blue lightning that swirled and crackled around it. This was none other than the Conqueror's coating, an advanced technique that added an extra layer of power and destruction to his already formidable attack. As Roger's keen foresight allowed him to anticipate his opponent's move, he wasted no time and launched an attack to intercept him. A massive, almost inhuman fist, with incredible proportions similar to Luffy's Gear 3 form, hurtled towards Roger at breakneck speed. However, Roger was ready for the attack and had his sword, ACE drawn and ready to strike. The two attacks, one of immense physical force and the other of deadly precision, were only millimeters away from colliding. Both were imbued with the power of emission, internal destruction, and Conqueror's hockey. The area around the two combatants was ablaze with a mix of blue and red lightning, each attempting to overpower the other. The moment they made contact, the clash resulted in an explosive burst of energy, causing significant damage to the surroundings. Despite the intense confrontation, Roger couldn't help but express his admiration for his opponent's incredible strength. With a grin, he exclaimed, "Wahaiche, you are insanely strong." Red Jam let out a deep sigh, realizing the tremendous power displayed by Roger's attack. "I suppose I'll have to give that one back to you," he replied, his forehead visibly pulsating with a vein due to the intense exchange of power. The power of the clash between Red Jam and Roger was so immense that it caused the very room they were in to shake violently. The surroundings began to dissolve, as if they were being consumed by the force of the impact. The tremors were not just limited to the land. Even the ships in the distance were affected, causing them to shake and sway dangerously. Boom! Despite the sheer force of their clash, neither Roger nor Red Jam emerged as the clear victor. Both combatants were pushed back, but surprisingly, both remained unscathed by the exchange of blows. Growing impatient, Red Jam realized that Roger was even stronger than he had anticipated. It was no surprise that someone with a bounty of 2 billion belly would possess such power, but the fact that Red Jam might not emerge as the victor was infuriating him. "That's enough!" he exclaimed, his frustration boiling over. Red Jam's arm once again became engulfed in immense heavenly blue flames that seemed to threaten to consume everything in their path. The arm illusion grew larger and larger with each passing second until it reached a staggering size of 50 meters. An enormous amount of hockey flowed through the attack, and the constant swirling of lightning bolts around it only added to its destructive power. With a fierce battle cry, Red Jam launched his attack. "Take this! Heavenly breath!" Boom! The illusionary flame fist shot out toward Roger at an incredible speed, but the latter only grinned widely in response. Unable to contain his excitement, Roger let out a hearty laugh. "Wahaiche, I'm happy to meet that challenge," he exclaimed. His gaze never leaving the incoming attack, Roger concentrated intensely, and with a whispered command, he unleashed his own powerful technique. "Divine Departure!" he exclaimed, unleashing a surge of his own energy to meet Red Jam's attack head-on. Boom! A powerful shockwave emanated from his sword as he channeled an immense amount of hockey into his strike. The resulting sword beam was an impressive 60 meters in length and crackled with intense red lightning that swirled around it. In appearance, it resembled the iconic Getsuga Tensho technique from the popular anime series Bleach. The two attacks approached each other with incredible speed and power, both threatening to engulf everything in their path. The sheer force of their immediate collision was so immense that everything in their vicinity was pulverized without any resistance. The pressure was so great that it seemed as though the two attacks themselves could influence space and time. Both attacks came to a standstill, hovering just millimeters from each other, as they engaged in an invisible battle for dominance. Long bolts of red and blue lightning struck out in all directions, relentlessly destroying the surrounding area. Trees were instantly turned to charcoal and the ground was pockmarked with meter-deep craters, as the two opposing forces clashed with all their might. Left, right, left. The attacks fought on, each trying to overpower the other. For a time, it seemed as though neither attack could gain the upper hand. But eventually, even the power of the attacks themselves became too much to contain, and they detonated in a blinding explosion of light and energy. Just before the final release of power, the two attacks had fused together, turning a shimmering white as they exploded into oblivion. Boom! Despite their efforts to move away, Roger and Red Jam couldn't escape the full force of the explosion. The output of their two attacks was beyond massive, and the resulting blast swallowed up the entire island. The explosion was accompanied by an enormous shockwave and deafening sound pressure that would surely leave everyone ringing in their ears. Red Jam, despite wielding a powerful devil fruit, was not exempt from the limits of pain. Even the mythical fruits had their threshold, and it seemed that Conqueror's hockey had surpassed it. "Your attack was truly remarkable," chuckled Roger, his laughter echoing through the air. Several minutes earlier, as Pride's boat drew closer to the island, the sound of explosive impacts and thunderous shockwaves grew ever more intense. The sheer strength of the two fighters was evident, even from a great distance. "It seems that only Roger is engaged in combat," Pride thought to himself, sensing the presence of Rayleigh, Gabon, and the others aboard their vessel. Unsurprisingly, Pride's approach did not escape their notice, as each individual emitted a distinct aura. As Rayleigh detected Pride's approach, a small grin played across his lips. As the figure approached, the faces of the Phoenix pirates were etched with a mixture of surprise, tension, and shock. They had no idea who or what was headed their way, only that the approaching individual was clearly formidable. Some among them wondered why a lone person would be venturing out to sea, especially in the midst of an ongoing battle. "Hey, Orichalcum, who is that?" asked the commander of the 2nd Division, his voice betraying his surprise at the unexpected arrival. Orichalcum sighed heavily, adding, "I have no idea, but he certainly seems strong. What could he possibly want here? He's walking straight into the jaws of death. On the other ship. Ha-ha-h, Rayleigh. It's been ages since we've seen him." "I've missed him," Gabon exclaimed, his smile bright and radiant. "I believe we've all missed him," Rayleigh replied, glancing around at the deck and seeing the grins on the faces of his fellow crewmates. Even Roger couldn't help but chuckle at the distant presence of Pride. "Wa-ha-ha-ha," he bellowed, his laughter ringing through the air. Red Jam turned his gaze towards the two ships and then in the direction of Pride, a look of confusion on his face. "What's so amusing, Roger?" he asked, curious about the cause of his laughter. Back to the present. As Pride drew nearer to the ships, he felt the full force of the colossal shockwave that had decimated the island. Roger must have truly mastered Conqueror's coding, Pride thought to himself, a wide grin spreading across his face. He could now see both Roger and his opponent, suspended in the air without saying a word. With a wide grin on his face, Pride's eyes shifted, filling with a dark red hue that seemed to pulsate with energy. And then, without any hesitation, he unleashed his complete conqueror's haki with all his might. A massive black bubble, hundreds of meters wide, emerged from him, expanding at an incredible speed like a powerful shockwave. It surged towards both the pirate ships and the direction of Roger and Red Jam, engulfing everything in its path with an overwhelming force that was felt for miles around. The very air itself seemed to tremble and quake under the immense pressure, as the shockwave threatened to obliterate everything in its wake. As the massive shockwave continued on its trajectory, the sea below erupted into chaos. The waves grew wild and turbulent, losing all semblance of control, as if a massive tornado was about to form at any moment. Gusts of wind lashed out in all directions, battering everything in their path with their sheer force. All sea creatures within a radius of several kilometers were instantly overcome by the power of the shockwave, losing consciousness as their bodies were overwhelmed by the tremendous force. The sky overhead darkened once again, the darkness seeming to intensify with each passing moment. And then, with a deafening roar, black lightning bolts began to rain down from the heavens, striking the sea and the ships with incredible ferocity. It was as if nature was rebelling against the sheer power of Pride's conqueror's haki, lashing out with its most violent forces in a desperate attempt to quell the chaos unleashed upon it. As the massive black sphere reached the two pirate ships, they began to wobble and lose control under the immense pressure. Cracks appeared in the hulls of the ships as they struggled to withstand the tremendous force that was being exerted upon them. The pirates on board the ships were not spared from the effects of Pride's conqueror's haki either. Second by second, more and more of them had to kneel and hold on, struggling to maintain their consciousness as the overwhelming aura threatened to overwhelm their senses. Even some of the Roger pirates were affected, their bodies trembling as they tried to resist the power of the shockwave. The lower commanders of the Phoenix pirates were also not immune to the ominous and powerful aura that surrounded Pride. They had to maintain their focus with all their might, struggling to resist the overwhelming force that threatened to overcome them. Sweat dripped down their faces, their bodies straining with the effort to withstand the power of the conqueror's haki. Ha 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 ha! What an incredible conqueror's haki, Rayleigh grinned. He couldn't help but think that the conqueror's haki he just witnessed was on par with Roger's. He has truly become a formidable force, Rayleigh thought to himself. Gabon, who had also felt the power of this haki, commented, "He has become incredibly strong." However, he wasn't bothered by it. Being in the company of beasts like Rayleigh and Roger had its perks. The members of the Roger pirates began to sweat profusely and had to concentrate with all their might to counteract the overwhelming energy emanating from the conqueror's haki. Despite their efforts, the energy continued to advance toward Roger and Red Jam. Roger couldn't help but laugh heartily. Wahahaha! He was impressed. "This is fantastic," he thought. "Just 6 years ago, he was a mere boy I met in the West Blue, and now his conqueror's haki is equal to mine." Red Jam furrowed his brow slightly as he and Roger both activated their haki to counteract the energy sphere. To his surprise, he noticed that the conqueror's haki of the unknown person was slightly stronger than his own. Boom! Roger and Red Jam were able to successfully defend against the energy sphere using their own haki output. Ha-ha-ha! Roger, Rayleigh, Gabon. "It's been a long time," Pride exclaimed with a grin. He then turned his gaze towards the Oro Jackson and asked, "How are you doing, guys?" Red Jam could feel the tension in the air as he assessed the situation. Despite his confidence in his crew's strength, he knew that fighting against the entire Roger pirates would be a formidable challenge. At best, it would end in a stalemate. However, the arrival of the unknown person, who seemed to be familiar with the Roger pirates, added a new level of complexity to the situation. Red Jam knew that he needed to be cautious and keep his guard up. The slightest misstep could have dire consequences. Adding to the complexity of the situation was the fact that the entire island had been pulverized, leaving no terrain for Red Jam and his crew to position themselves strategically. This put them at a disadvantage, as they were unable to take advantage of their surroundings to gain the upper hand in battle. Moreover, Roger was an incredibly strong opponent. If Red Jam were to take even one blow from him and be catapulted into the sea, it could spell the end for him and his crew. The leader of the Phoenix pirates shot a stern look toward Roger and spoke with a hint of annoyance in his voice. "I trust you will uphold your promise and only engage in exploration. Otherwise, I will not hesitate to take action against you and your crew." With lightning speed, he spread his wings and soared back towards his ship. "Men, we're leaving," he ordered. Roger couldn't help but feel a twinge of disappointment. He had been relishing the thrill of the fight and wasn't quite ready for it to come to an end. However, he knew better than to push his luck and risk further conflict with the fierce Phoenix pirates. Not long after, the Phoenix pirates' vessel gradually disappeared from view,